Hi, I'm Chris from Lone Aspen.
And I'm Jeff. We're going to talk a little bit about the necessity of fire when living outdoors. Um, the bottom line is that when you spend as much time outdoors as we do, fire is an absolute necessity, year-round. End of story. Um, Aside from critical basics like smoking hides and smoke bathing in preparation for a hunt, we use fire to give us light, to give us warmth, to ward off predators, to boil our water, to cook our food, to produce lye from which we make toothpaste and soaps, for burning out and hollowing out objects to make bowls, spoons, and all kinds of tools. Our uses for fire are literally limitless. And the big one is in the wintertime because in the wintertime it is cold outside, your body is hot, and between the two there's moisture. And so whenever you spend more than just a few days outside, all of your gear starts to condense and it becomes wet. And you have to have fire to drive that moisture out. We're going to talk a lot more about that this winter. Um, but as it stands now, we really want to talk about the fire ring itself. We travel all over the Rockies, and we always see these very comical 5-foot diameter fire rings. That's pretty epic stuff. Those people must love chopping up wood and sawing up wood, or else they just bring a lot with them. I don't really know why you would need a fire pit that large. We use, this is actually a pretty big fire pit for us here, and it's a true reflector fire. Right now it's daytime. The wind is traveling up the valley and up the hill. At nighttime that's going to turn, and the wind's going to turn and come right back down the valley, and it's going to feed this fire, and it's going to blow the smoke this way. Chris and I are going to be sitting on this side. Now, for example, if your fire is down here and you have your rock pile, what happens is that the heat is coming out and it's only hitting Chris from about here up, which is why on the front it's a reflector fire. There's actually no rocks at all. We sit in front of it, we watch the fire, we stay warm, we do what we're doing. Um, Another thing that we see is if you have a large boulder, people will build a fire right under the boulder and then stand out in the open air, which is backwards from what you want to do. What you want to do is stand up against the boulder and have the fire in front of you so that the boulder, which has probably already trapped the heat from the sun as the day went on, reflects that heat back at you, and you're standing in between the two.
Right, and we don't always go primitive with it, and we don't advocate that as much either. Doing things like friction fires, bow drills, all great skills to learn. It's a very romanticized thing, but I don't know what encounter you'd find yourself in to use that, because usually you're going to have, hopefully, your fire starter on you at all times. If you're into being prepared, you're going out in the woods, you should always have it in at least one and some tinder in like, the pocket of your clothes. It's a necessity, very essential thing out there.
You know, we know how to do all that stuff, friction fires, rubbing two sticks together. And if you've never done that, man, you don't know what a day's work is. It is very difficult. It's an incredible skill to have, but in the modern times versus having a fire starter on you, it's kind of impractical. Carry your fire starter on you. We collect true survival stories, which are growing more numerous every year, of people going into the forest unprepared. And especially in the backpacking community, what we're reading, aside from the number one story, I was only going out for the day. The number two story we find is really navigation skills. And the number three is I wish I could have started a fire because I almost died that night. Fire is, I would think it would go, without saying, but apparently it does these days, is that it is an absolutely critical, universal tool that goes hand in hand with being outdoors and especially living outdoors. Um, you absolutely have to have it. Um,
A lot of people carry stoves with them. That's very popular. And that all depends on, of course, we don't build a fire if there's a fire ban on. Always be cognizant and aware of whatever your local territory, if there's a fire ban on, then you shouldn't be out there building fires. But the stoves, the thing is, if you're out here doing this, long term like we do, the stove's going to run out of fuel. So the fire works in the long term, and it's also going to work in the short term. What works in the short term doesn't always necessarily work for the long term, so might as well go for the latter.
until you really mess with the skill of cooking on this fire, Like, you know, if I had this fire and I handed you half a dozen eggs, could you make an omelet or a hard-boiled egg? Um, fire is just as infinitely flexible as your stove with the flame control. It's just you got to come at it backwards. You got to think about it, and the ability to really make your bowls and your spoons and cook on this, and just even the ability to make a good fire pit that gives you the maximum amount of warmth for the minimum amount of wood and energy expenditure. These are all skills that come with practice, and man, once you have those skills, it makes everything out here much easier. So thanks for stopping by today. We're going to talk a little bit about fire starting here in a minute. We hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to get a hold of us. Later.